This conference will now be
Okay,
recorded.
if I go to front end, we have run the form directly. We have run the form directly. Instead of that, there is one more way. What is the way? You can see here there is a modules, and in the modules you can add your own module. Our module is shopping management system. So what we can do is we can add a module called shopping management system, and then we can create a menu items for that. Okay. So to do this, we have to do few things in Dynamics 365. Okay. Those are called menu items. We need to create a menu item. So what is a menu item? A menu item is used to display the user interfaces at the front end. Okay, menu items. A menu item is used to display display something on the front end. It might be a screen, or it might be a batch job, or it might be anything. If you want to display something to the user, okay, some screen to the user on the front end, we need to use menu item. And these menu items are divided into three different types. First one is called display menu item. Second one is called action menu item. And the third one is called output menu item. The menu items are divided into three different types. First one is called display menu item. Second one is called action menu item. Third one is called output menu item. Display menu item. See here, we have a simple user interface. We have a simple user interface, and we have created a form. Okay, we are going to show the form, and the user will be able to edit the information. User will be able to edit the information, and it is related to the data. Okay, user will be able to edit the data on the front end. Then that will be display menu item. Basically, we will use forms. Okay, and if you are creating any class with user interface, any class only with user interface for editing the data of the tables, then you will use display menu item. Whereas we have the runnable classes. We have runnable classes. Okay, for example, we have batch jobs. We have batch jobs. They will perform some action at the back end. Then we will create a menu item called action menu item. And the third one is called output menu item. See here, now let's say the end user is trying to search the information. Okay, he wants to get the all the invoiced orders. Then what you will do? You will simply create a output menu item. So if you are working with the reports, then we will use output menu item. Okay, now you might get it out. For form, can I create output menu item and use it? Yeah, I can use it. This is used simply for separation. Okay, this is used simply for separation. Okay, even the display menu item, action menu item, output menu item, the properties will be same. There will be no change in properties. Whereas whereas what will be different? You are segregating the information, the type of the object. Okay, so now we are working with a form. So what I need to do? I need to create a display menu item. So right click on the add button, new item, and then you can go for a menu item. In the user interface, you can see we have display, action, and output. I am taking the display menu item, and then I will call this as address or AMA address. Okay, this is my menu item name, the display menu item name. And you can see it will create a display menu item for us. If I go to the properties, you can see the label, and you can give whatever the label you want. Now I asked you to try with multiple languages. I don't know whether you have tried it or not. Okay, but please try that. Address information. Okay, so whatever you need to do is, instead of hard coding this, you need to add the label. Okay, you need to add the label. Now you can see there are few more properties. If you want to display the image, disabled image location, help text if you want to define the help text, and if you want to have the image location is again the interesting thing. We'll come back to this one later, because we have a concept called resource files. We can use resource file and we can generate the image. You can use the URL. For example, we have some img.db, something like that, the URLs. If you want to get images from that URLs, you can do that. And similarly, if you want to use the AOT resource file, you can use it. Or if you want to use a local file, you can use it. Okay, you can use anything for the image location. Okay, whether you want to allow multiple selection, then you need to set it to yes. By default, it will be no. And then see here, copy caller query. This will be used when you are opening one screen from another screen. Okay, one screen from another screen. Let's say you have form 1 and form 2. From form 1, you have a menu item. From there, you are opening the another screen. Then at that point, if you want to copy the query of the caller, which is form 1, then we will use copy caller query and we will set it to yes. Okay, extended data security, whether we need it or not. Okay, if you want to have the data security, then we will set it to yes. I will explain this when we go to the security. Okay, form view option, what should be the default option? Whether you want to have a grid or whether you want to have a details. Okay, whether it's a hub part. Okay, hub part we will see it again in this as well. We will see what is header hub. Okay, we will see that. And whether the form needs record or not. Okay, by default I am setting it to no because I want to open the empty screen as well. Open mode, whether you want to open in a new, that means whenever you open a screen it will create a new record automatically. Edit, whether you want to edit in open in edit mode or whether you want to open it in view mode. By default it is view mode. Okay, similarly this property is configuration key, country configuration key, country region codes, create permissions. By default you will have all the permissions. If you want to set something explicitly, we need to either enable or disable them. Delete permissions, whether you want allow user to delete or not. Okay, this enum parameter, enum type parameter, we will see when we go to batch jobs. When we see sys operation framework, I will show you what are this. Okay, is obsolete, whether this is obsolete or not. This is the interesting property again. Object type and object. Object type is form and object is AMA address. This is the form that we have created. Object type would be form. Operational domain, whether you want to have the shared, whether you want to have the only at the company level or local, because this is a shared one here, so there is no need of setting anything, because from address table we are going to share data across everything. Okay, whether there is any query associated with this form, then you need to set this query. Okay, this will be in turn used with copy caller query. If you are having any query associated this form with this form, then we will use the query. Okay, and again you can see report design. If you are using a report, you can mention the report design. Okay, read permissions, create permissions, delete permissions. I am setting it to auto, means the user will have all the permissions. If you want to have only read permissions, then set read to yes, delete and create, set it to no. Then the user will only be able to read the data and he would not be able to perform any other operation. Okay, similarly you have update permissions as well. Okay, so this is how the menu item properties will be there. And these properties, even if you create the display menu item, even if you create the output menu item, even if you create the action menu item, the properties will be same. Whatever we will do is, in case of batch jobs, if it is an action menu item, I will update this enum parameter and enum type parameter. Like this, depending upon the requirement, we will update. I will show you. Okay, now see here, let me save this. And now we are done with creating the menu item. This is my first menu item, which is an address. It is done. The next step would be to create a menu. Okay, click on the add button, click on the new item, and we have a menu. I will call this as AMA shopping management system. I am calling it as AMA shopping management system. This is my menu. If I go to the properties, you can see these are the properties of a menu. Again, you have the similar properties here as well. Okay, currently for a menu, don't set any menu item type here. For menu, don't set any menu item type. It is not needed. Okay, if you want to specify the default company, then you can set company to yes. Okay, but this is also not needed, because menus, if you go to the front end, you can see these are the menus. Okay, now right click on the menu, and to the menu you can add a menu item reference, a separator, a submenu, a menu reference, a menu element tile. Okay, so what are these? Now if I go to the front end, you can see them. Okay, now this is a menu. If I select this, it will open the whole thing. Now you can see here, this is a sub menu. Workspace vendors is a sub menu. Okay, in between purchase orders. Okay, all these are the menus. Can you see this? All these are the menus. Similarly, if you want to add a separator in between both of them, you can add it. You can add a separator and you can add whatever you want. Okay, and now I will do the same thing here. I will right click on the new, and then I will create a sub menu. I will call this sub menu as setup, because address is the setup data. So what I will call? I will call this as setup data. Okay, I will call this as setup data. You can call whatever you want. I am calling it as setup data. I am not adding any menu item here. Now I will go to Solution Explorer. I have the AMA address menu item. You can simply drag and drop it here. Or if you want to create a submenu inside this, you can do that. You can add a separator, you can add a submenu. You can do that. Okay. Now I have added the menu item address. Now how to get this to this one? In these modules, I want to get it. This is called main menu. So whatever we need to do is, in the application explorer, you need to go to user interface, menus. Here we will have something called main menu. And if I expand this main menu, you can see common and system administration. Let me open the designer. Okay, you can see common and system administration. Now what I will do is, I will create a extension for this main menu. Click on create extension. This is called menu extension, and open. Oh, now can you see this? The difference. The main menu has only common and system administration, but main menu is extended in number of modules. In each module, they have added their own menu. You can see this. This is how it works. Now for my shopping management system, did I add any label in the properties? Okay, let me add. I will call this as shopping management system. Done. Save. Okay. Now what I will do is, in this main menu, if you want to add a menu reference, you can click and name. You can add menu reference. That is possible. Or if you want to create a menu reference directly, take your shopping management system, drag and drop. Oh, it's not working. Let's me then click on the new menu reference. Okay, properties. Now you can see, I will call this as shopping management system, menu name AMA shopping management system. Select this and save this. We are done. We are done with creating the menu, and we have added the menu items to our menu. Now let me do a rebuild. And once the rebuild is finished, let's go and check in the front end whether our shopping management system is available or not. Okay. Yeah, let it build. In the meantime, you can let me know if you have any questions. Okay. So this is how we need to create a menu items and menu.
Kumar, how to do debug in the form label?
Already I have showed it yesterday itself. Today as well, we will see it. Don't worry. I will show you. There are two ways. Okay. One is you can run the form directly and then you can debug. The second way is you can attach the process and then you can debug. Okay. Build got completed successfully. Now go to front end and refresh. Let's wait for a minute here. It will load. So this is how we create the menu extension. And similarly, if you want to create the menu item extension, the same way. Because few of the times we will have the requirement. For example, you have a custom table form, but you don't want that custom table form. You want to create your own form and then you want to apply it to cache table menu item. You can do that. You can simply go to the menu item, okay, display, and let's say it's the cache table. Now right click on this cache table, create the extension out of it. Okay. Now we have created the extension for menu item, the cache table extension for menu item. Now if I open this, if I go to the properties, you can see, oh, it's not allowing. Good. They have removed this. Okay. Seems like they have removed this. Now you can see object cache table. You cannot modify this. They are allowing only to modify label and help text. It's very bad. Okay. They are allowing only us to modify label and help text. Okay. It's very bad. I saw it. Seems like for this one they have not allowed or what? Oh, it's not running. Because in previous versions I saw they allowed to modify the form name for a menu item extension. Let me create one more extension and check. In some version I found out. Okay. Okay. Here actually those are disabled. Yeah. We can't modify the object as well. We can only modify label and help text. Nothing other than that. Okay. If you want to create a new screen, you can simply create a new screen for that. And even in the menu extension as well, you can't delete anything existing. Whatever you have created now, you can modify only that one. And these are all the limitations. Okay. Okay. Now let's go to the modules and see shopping management system. Yeah, we got it here. In this, I have a setup data. I have the address information. Select the address information. You will get it. It will load the screen. Okay. This is how we work with menus, menu items. Okay. Please remember. Next. Now see here. The next thing is about the form methods. Okay. Now if I say form methods, now whenever I say form methods, okay, methods, these are divided into different types. I will say 3 different types. First one is called form methods. Second one is called form control methods. Third one is called form data source methods. Okay, form data source methods. These are the 3 different types of methods that you will see in a form. Okay, form methods, form data source methods, form control methods. Okay, and please remember this sequence is very, very important. Okay, because whenever you are working with the code, whenever you are working with the form, you will find a whole lot of forms in the form method here. If you click on the override, you can see there are lots and lots of methods. Okay, there are lots and lots of methods. And you might ask me, oh, are we going to use all these methods? Never. Because whatever the properties that we have on the forms, they are also listed as methods. Okay, whatever the methods, properties that we have, they are also listed in the form methods. Okay, for example, I will tell you about few of the methods, okay, that you will be using regularly. Okay, for example, override. If you click on the override, now you might get one more dot. Okay, similar to the table, because in table I told you we have a common. Similarly, is there anything relevant to form? Let's see. If I view code, I need to get it. Extends form run. All the forms are extended from using form run. Okay, so what is this form run? What is this form run? This is the parent of all the forms. Whenever you are working with the form methods, this is the parent of all the forms that we have. Okay, and coming to the methods of the form, you are seeing lots and lots of methods, but there are very few methods that we will use. For example, arguments. Okay, this actually we will not override, but whenever you want to pass some data between one form to another form, we will use arguments. Whenever you want to pass data from one class to another class, we will use arguments. Whenever you want to pass the data between form and a class, we will use arguments. Okay, again you might get it out. Okay, arguments in the sense, what kind of arguments? Whether I need to pass any variables? No, not the variables. At the form level, by default, you will have some properties. Okay, properties, methods, as okay. So all those things will come with these arguments, and we can use these arguments to get them. Okay, and at the form level, there are very few methods that we will use. For example, you can see can close. Okay, when you are trying to close the form, okay, when you are trying to close the form, the can close will get triggered. Let's say you want to perform some action when the form is being closed, then we will use this can close and then close. Along with this, we have one more method called closed OK. Okay, closed OK. Okay, closed OK means if you click on the close button, then it will call closed OK. You will have a close icon on the top. If you click on the close icon now, it will not use this. Okay, this close OK method is very important because whenever the user has performed some action on a bigger screen, let's say, then he wants to store all the data. You will do all that stuff in the closed OK method. Okay, in the closed OK method, we will do that stuff. Okay, and similarly, initialization stuff. Okay, for the form as well, there should be some initialization. Nah? We have it, yeah. We have it. Okay, I'll come back to this refresh, read and research later on. We have that method called init. Now see here, init method of the form is used for initialization. Init method of the form is used for initialization. What initialization do we do in this method? To initialize the form controls. Okay, you have a lot of controls. You want to set some default values. Okay, setting the default values you can do in init method as well, but that's up to you again. Okay, but if you want to initialize, if the system needs to initialize, okay, by default you have the form run. The form run should initialize whatever the form controls. For example, if I go to this AMA address form, in the address grid, or action pane is a form control, group control is a form control, city is a form control, country is a form control. All these are called form controls. For all these form controls, if they should get initialized, it will use the init method. In the supercall, this will happen. The initialization will happen. Okay, and then at the form level we have few more methods. Okay, few more methods. For example, let me take the init is done to initialize the workflow controls. Init workflow controls, initialize workflow controls, and then uh, checking for print preview, and all this. There will be a lot of methods here which we are not going to use. Okay, and if you want to perform some operation at the back end, we will use run async. Okay, but frankly speaking, run async is used very rarely. Okay, because I saw only in one of the place, I think. Okay, but I don't remember that in the Dynamics 365 for the standard screens I saw in only in one place. Okay, whereas in the classes we will use it. Next, run method. This is the very interesting method to perform the business logic on the form. If you want to perform the business logic on the form, the run method will take care of that. Okay, so what this run will do? This will execute the business logic and it will perform the database search and it will display the data on the form. Okay, so what you can do in this, let's say if you want to activate or deactivate fields at runtime. Okay, if you want to activate or deactivate the fields that you want to display on the screen at runtime, then you need to write that piece of code in run method. Then you can write that piece of code in run method. Okay, we will see that, don't worry. And then all these are form methods. Similarly, you will have a lot of methods here. Similarly, you will have a whole lot of methods. Okay, create record, cut, copy. Okay, and similarly, if you come down, you can see MNOP paste, preview field, preview. Like this, you have a lot of methods. Okay, save personalization. If the user is personalizing the screen, and if you want to allow him to personalize, then you can use this save personalization and you can set it to true. You can do that. Okay, so similarly, set timeout. Okay, if you want to process something on the basis of time period, then we will use the timeout. Okay, but frankly speaking, most of the methods we will not use in a lifetime. What are the methods that we will use is only these are the methods that we will use. Even can close and can close as well we will not use. We will use init, run, closed. Okay. Okay. Init, run, closed. Okay. Okay. Now let me open the standard form. Any one of the standard form. We will see that. Okay. Can you see this? Class declaration init. This is from application suite. Account and BR methods. Class declaration init update address. Update address is the user defined method. Okay. In the table I told you now, system defined method, application defined method, user defined method. The same thing we have in form as well. System defined methods are that can be overridden. User defined methods are you can write your own methods. Application defined methods are display and edit method. Okay, display and edit method. We will see that. What is display and what is edit? We will see that. Methods. You can see this. Init, run, close. All these exist primary, update, call from, update design. These are the user defined methods. So like this, if you see any forms, you will find only those methods. The remaining methods are used very rarely. Init, close, can close, run. Okay, this is another form. All these are from application suite init. Okay, let's see. Cache table is the biggest one. So let's see what are the methods in the cache table. Okay, now these are the methods that we have. Can submit to workflow. This is again not this one. Class declaration, close, init, run, is active. Okay, let me check whether is active is overridden method or not. I don't remember that. Is active. Oh, is active as well as user defined method. You can say this. This is how, frankly speaking, we are not going to use all those methods. Those are used very rarely. Okay, those are used very rarely. Whereas these methods are the ones which we are going to use all the time. Okay, so please remember about these methods. I told you there are second type of methods called form data source methods. And coming to this form data source methods, already you have seen table methods. Is that right? This will be similar to that of those methods. Now, first one is active. Okay, active. AOS validate read. Okay, this is similar but not same. Okay, whenever you change the record on the form, the active method will get called. The active method will get triggered. And then allo check, allo create, allo delete, allo edit. These are the properties. At runtime, if you want to disallow addition, at runtime, if you want to disallow deletion based on certain condition, then you can use this. Then you can use the allo delete and you can set it to false. Form data source dot allo delete equal to in the bracket false. It will not allow deletion. Okay, auto notify, auto query. You might get it out. Oh, he is saying this, but can I see those properties? You can see allo create, allo delete, allo edit, allo notify, auto query, auto search. Can you see this? Now let me show you. You will find the same thing here. To modify these things at the runtime, they have given them as the methods. All these are the properties. Okay. Similarly, I will override, delete, delete. Okay, let me take create. I can see create as well, and override, and can delete, and then override, and then cursor. You know what is cursor? To get the current record from the data source. From form data source, to get the current record, we will use cursor. We will use cursor. Okay. And then next, delete, deleted, deleting. These are the events. On delete, on deleted, on delete, on deleted, on deleting events. Okay. And then execute query is again a very interesting method. Okay. We will see what we can do in the execute query as well. Find value, force right, first. To get the first record from the form data source, we will use this first method. Get first, get next. Get first, and then after that you will use get next. Using a while loop, we can fetch all the records from the data source. Okay. Init. And then we have one more method called init value. So what we will do in the init value method of the table, whatever we want to initialize at the table level, we will write that piece of code in init value. The same thing we do here. Whatever you want to initialize at the form level,
Control.
we will use in init value. Okay. Next, you have the query build data source query here. This is what I said. When you will use XPP query, you have a form data source. For the form data source, you want to add ranges or something at the runtime. Then we will use XPP query. We will see that. We will see that today. Don't worry. Next, I'm checking for a few more methods. Validate right. I told you whenever you are trying to insert or update the data, only use write method. This is the reason. Okay. Because at the form level, you don't have insert, update, delete. You have only validate write, validate delete, delete write. Write is used for insert or update. When you are trying to insert the data or update the data, only this write method will get called. Okay. So writing and return I am not using. These are the methods. Now we will see the method calling sequence, and then we will move forward. Okay. I am adding. Oh, there is one more thing that I forgot. Let me add it. I will lose the breakpoints. I told you about form control methods. Now let's say I have the city. Okay. We were fighting for Hyderabad and Bangalore now. Let's see how to do that on the form. We have seen how to do that on the table. Now click on the override, and then you can see again there are a whole lot of methods for this one. All this as well. You will see the properties in this again back to back. Is editable, is enabled, is mandatory, is visible. All these are the properties. Okay. Now if I come down, you can see again run for the business logic, and again sort. If you want to have some validation, validate, and if you want to have the update, update. Similarly modified. Okay. When the control is modified, the value is modified in the control. What do you want to do? You can write that piece of code in the modified method. We will see. We will add the breakpoints, and then we will write some piece of code. Okay. I am adding breakpoints everywhere. Just a second. Let me add the breakpoints everywhere. Okay. Okay, here. You can see how they are organized. This is a subclass again for data source. The main class is form. The subclass is form data source. For control, there will be one more subclass called form control. Let me show you. Main class, subclass form data source, and subclass form control. Okay. So like this, it is organized. This is how they are organized. Now save this. And now we need to open the form, and then we need to check. Again, as I told you, there are two ways. You can open the form directly by pressing the F5, or you can open it from the front end by attaching the process. I am running the form now. Let's see how it works. If you want to set, you can set the startup item as the menu item as well. Okay. You can set this as well as the startup object. You can do this. You can set the startup object as menu item, and then you can debug the form. That's possible. Okay. Yeah. In the meantime, it will take anyway some time. So please let me know if you have any queries.
So these methods are, if anybody know Visual Basic .NET or VB6,
Hmm.
These methods are similar to the events in VB.NET.
Yeah, those are similar.
For the form, for the control separately, they have
Hmm.
some events to perform any task or validate the inputs, all these things.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, in all these methods, like init value or init any method, the main function is doing by
Main function is by
super call,
SQL call. No,
not
SQL call
SQL,
is associated. One
super
second.
call.
Super. Yeah. You mean to say super? Yes. Because as I told you, na, everywhere it is extended with form run. So it should initialize and it should execute the business logic. It should call the database. All those things will be happen by using the form run only. Okay. So here what is happening? Form is getting open. Which method did it call? Init method. Okay. Form init method. Okay. Now if you see the method calling sequence, what is the first method? Opening the form. First it called init of form. Now let me get back here. Just a second here, it's loading still. Okay, it has loaded. Now I am running this by using F5. Now where did it go? Come on. Mhm. Okay, it came into init method, but this time init of data source. Okay, it went into init of the form, initialized all the form controls. It went into init of data source, and it is initializing the data source now. Okay, run. Now after initializing the data source, let's see where it will go. It came back to the run method of the form. It came to run of form, and then let me run this back again. It came to execute query of form data source. So what does the execute query do? It will execute the query and then fetch the data from the database. Okay, the data fetching will happen in the execute query method. Please remember. So if you want to write any ranges, you can write them in the execute query method. Okay, you can write them in the execute query method. You can see query is select first for update star from AMA address. This is the query. Okay, now I pressed F10, done. Now you can see query run is initialized in the super. So data fetching will be done in execute query method. So when you are debugging, if you are not getting the right data or the proper data, then what you need to do? You need to add a breakpoint in the execute query and then you need to debug. From execute query, where did it go? Let's see. It has not opened the form yet. Yeah, let's see. I'm waiting for it to load. Let's wait for a second. It's still loading. Okay, come on. Okay, it came back to the active method. Okay, why active? Why active? Can anyone tell me? Active method of data source, because by default when the form is open, it will point out to the first record, so it will come to active. Now here in the active method, I will remove the breakpoint, because each and every time I update the boot to the record now, then it will call active method. There is one more method called selection changed. You can also use that selection changed as well. If you don't want to write code in active, you can go over selection changed. Okay, now you can see done. These are the records. Good. Now let me select the new button. I want to see what methods will get called. I click at the new button. It called the create method of the form data source. Okay. Now what is the next step? Create a record. Which method did it call? Create method of the form data source. And then let me run. It went into init value of the form data source. And then let me run back. Okay, now it has showed city. I will say Hyderabad, tab. Where did it go? Modified method of the form control. Okay, modified method. Okay, if form control methods are written to trigger for updates, they will get triggered. Done. Okay, I wrote it for city, so it will trigger only for city. This is similar to that of a validate field in case of table level. Okay, but it will trigger only for city here. It will not trigger for all the others. Please remember. From where we got this street Amirpet? From where we got this IND? Table init value. So what it will do? Here, it will call the init value, and then I am writing table method. You need to check which will call. Add a breakpoint and check in the table as well. It will call the table method init value here. And then it will come back to form control. And then where we are now? I am adding the data. District. Let me add Ranga Reddy. Let me add Turkayamjal. Okay, Amirpet. Let me add some zip code 50000265. Okay, done. After adding everything, I am clicking on the save button. Where did it go? Write method. Okay, before this write method, I want you to check what are the table methods that will get executed. Okay, where did it go? Form data source validate write. From form data source validate write, it went into write, but this is not the sequence. What it will do? What it will do? Validate write form, validate write table, write. It will call the table method form method, both of them. Okay. Now you might ask me, will it call write? No, it will call insert. Write of form, insert of table. This is the sequence. Please remember. Run. Okay. We have not added the breakpoint at the table level because I want you to add and check that the record got created. Now let's say if I am deleting the record, it called delete method, validate delete of the table, and then if you press yes, delete of the table. This is how deletion will happen. Okay. I want you to check the sequence. It is very interesting. Please check the sequence. I showed you for two of them. I want you to check when you modify a record, what are the methods that are getting called? When you are deleting a record, we have seen. When you are saving a record, we have seen. When you are opening a screen record, we have seen. Okay, so this is how you need to check the methods and you need to decide. So now when you will write the code in init value of the form data source, when you will write code in init value of the table, if the data, whatever we are setting the default values, is specific to this particular form, then we will initialize the values in this form. If the data we are setting is universal, it should be same, the default value is same in all the screens, then we will initialize in the table init value method. Please remember this. This is very, very important. Okay. Now I told you that we have we can create some ranges and all those using the data source. How to do that? Now let me go to this execute query. Okay, I will show you in one of the method here. All the places you can use that. Okay, I want to show you in one of the method. I will remove all these breakpoints. Okay, I am not writing anything in the init method. Okay, so remember, whenever you are working with, there is something called table buffer. Okay, the size of the buffer will be by default some 24 KB or something like that. Okay, so whenever you are executing the query, on the form, if you are writing a long query, then what will happen? The database buffer will get filled up and it will throw the error saying that database buffer full, database buffer full. So whenever you are writing the code, please remember, only the initializing stuff should be done in init method. The ranges should be added in execute query. Most of the times I saw the people who are initializing in execute query. Okay, because whenever you are applying some updates on the screen, whenever you are refreshing the screen, okay, you have three different methods. What are those? I told you we have refresh, reread, research. These are the three methods. So what people will think is they will similarly use execute query. Okay, you can call execute query whenever you want. When you call execute query, what will happen? It will refresh the data on the form. It will again execute the query and then it will refresh the data. In the execute query, you are again initializing lot of queries. You are going on adding the query. What will happen? You are filling up the table buffer because execute query, each time you call the execute query, if you are adding the data sources in the execute query, you are filling up the table buffer. So the initialization should be done only one time. Ranges you can add any number of times you want. Okay, because you need to remember about the buffer size. You have a table buffer size, the select buffer size. That buffer size is limited, so it will throw the error saying that buffer size exceeded. If you don't want to get that error, if you want to initialize, let's say you have address table. For this address, you want to add customers, you want to add the sales table, sales line. If you want to do that for the same screen, then you need to do that in init method. Okay, in init method of the form data source. Whereas if you want to define the range, then you need to do that in execute query. You need to do that in execute query. Okay, now here, how to do that? How to do that? Let's say I have a data source called AMA address. Okay, this is my data source name. Take this, copy this, and come back to this one. paste it over here. Dot. Okay, I am getting the field list. This is not needed. I will use underscore ds dot. Underscore ds means I am saying I want to apply something to the form data source. Here people used to ask me, can I write in a different way? You can create a object of the query build data source and assign this AMA address underscore data source, and then you can add ranges to it. You can do like that as well. That's up to you. If you want to use the query framework, you can use the query framework. Or if you want to define like this, you can do that. Okay. Here you can say data source. Okay, let me check. One second. I took the data source directly, so that is not needed. Let me check. I am checking for the range. No, I forgot the methods here. Frankly speaking, I never remember all these methods. Okay, because if you remember all these methods now, what will happen? You will miss the very important things that you need to remember. Okay, I have query dot I have only data source, one single data source, so I am using directly this one. Or if you want to use, because sometimes people used to ask me, instead of that, can I do something else? You can use data source name or data source table. You have data source table, you can use it. Okay. Add range. You can say field name inside the bracket, AMA address, comma. I will take city dot. You can use value, and in the value I will say Hyderabad. Okay. Now please remember, I wrote this before super. I wrote this before super. Okay. Please remember, this is very, very important. Okay. Now let me run the piece of code. This is the purpose of XPP query. This is the purpose of XPP query. Okay. So let it run. In the meantime, I told you that there are few methods. There are few methods. One is called refresh. What does the refresh does? Because on the screen you will see the refresh button. What does the refresh does? Refresh will simply refresh the screen. Whatever the data that is stored in the cache, it will refresh. Refresh is not going to touch the database. Remember this? Refresh is not going to touch the database. Second one is reread. Most of the times people will interpret this reread that it will hit the database and it will get the data, but it is not going to do that. Reread will fetch only current record from the database. What reread will do? It will only fetch the current record from the database. Most of the times what people will do is they will think reread as execute query and they will write it. Reread will hit the DB, but it will only fetch the current record. And the third one is called research. What research will do? Previously, to execute the data, you have some query. Okay. And it will execute the same query and it will return the results. So what is the difference? If you are using, let's say the user is clicking on the button, you call the research. Okay, that button has some filter. That filter will not get applied. If you are using the research, that filter will not get applied. It will pull the data with whatever the query that has executed previously. So what we will do is we will use execute query if you want to have dynamic filter. If you want to have dynamic filter, we will use execute query method. In the execute query, we will have the dynamic ranges. We will define the dynamic ranges in the execute query method. You can use if and else, if conditions, any number of if conditions. You can use switch case, and you can add the dynamic filters depending upon the selection by the user. If you want to do that, you need to use execute query, and you need to call the execute query on button click. Okay, so all these are the system defined methods. Now there are two more types. One is user defined method, second one is application defined method. We will see that. And please remember, this is how we will write the query. Okay, this is how you will use the XPP query on form. Please remember, this is very, very important. And the same thing you are going to do in all the screens. Whenever you have the screen, only this is the thing that you will do. Okay, we have not removed breakpoints everywhere. It's called init. Just a second, let it load. I want to remove all these breakpoints. Just a second. Okay, I wrote before the super. Let's see what will happen. I am pressing F10 here. I got the query. Select first for update star from address where city equal to Hyderabad. We have defined this Hyderabad by using the XPP query at runtime. Now press F10. Now go to this. You will have the query run. Check what is there in query run. Okay, where city equal to Hyderabad. This is how you need to write the query. And similarly, let's say you want to add one more table. You need to do that in the init method of the form data source. Okay, you can add one more table to the in the init method of the data source, but you should do that after super call. Please remember, super will initialize the data source of the form. After that, you need to add your own data source. After the super, you need to add it. Okay, please remember, this is very important. Now run. Now what it will show? It will show the data of address by adding the filter of Hyderabad. Let's see. This is how you need to write the code in the form. Okay, similarly, if you want to add some validation, okay, in the validate write method, you can add it. If you remember, if city is Hyderabad, okay, what you can do? You can get the data source cursor, you will get that particular record, and you can do that. That's possible here. Try it out. I want you to try that. I want you to validate them. Okay, you got the Hyderabad record. Good. This is how it works. This is how we are going to work with the form methods. Okay, I want you to try these things. And in the similarly, because sometimes people used to ask me, okay, I wrote this is well and good. Now let's say I want to write in a different way. I don't want to use the data source. Then how to do that? Don't use the data source. Use this. Save. This dot query dot data source add range. Done. I don't want to use the data source number. Dot. If you use data source, you can see data source name, data source table. Use data source table, and then add table name, and in the brackets mention the table name, address. Done. You can do this. You can do this. So there are a lot of ways of customizing the code. Sometimes people used to ask me, oh, I don't want to do this. I want to build my own XPP query. Do that. Okay, now I have the init method. I will write query equal to this dot query. You have the query now. Add the data source, add the range, add the filter, add group by, add having, whatever you want, you can add now. Okay, simply use this query q equal to this dot query. Simply do whatever you want with that query. Got it? This is how. This is the benefit of XPP queries. Did you get my point? This is the benefit of XPP queries. I want you to try those XPP queries by adding multiple data sources at runtime. At runtime, I want you to add the data sources. At runtime, I want you to add the ranges and try in this fashion. Okay? Yeah, this is about the form methods and form data source and control methods. We will see about application defined methods for the forms and user defined methods tomorrow. Yeah, now it's your time. Please let me know if you have any queries.
Why this has to be before super?
Here it is before super because in the super it will execute the query. Okay. After executing the query, if you write the range, what will happen? In the super, it is retrieving the data. It has the query run there. So if you write after super, that range is not going to take effect.
Okay.
Next,
What is the super here?
super will call the execute query of the form run, where the query will be executed and data will be fetched from the database.
Okay.
Okay. Any other queries?
Can we load any screen in a separate window? Separate. I
You
can say
mean to
new
say
window.
you want to load in a new tab? Here,
New
you
tab.
want to load a screen in a new tab? Yeah, you can do that. For that, actually, there is a different way. Okay, we need to use the HTML control and then we need to open the href. Do you know href?
Yes, yes. So
You need
like
to
this,
open
we
the
can.
URL. Okay, because if you see this, this is the URL to open the screen. So what it has
Okay.
done? Company equal to USRT, MI equal to AMI address. We need to add the HTML control and then we need to use this menu item. Then if the user selects on that one, then it will open in the ender screen.
So we can add HTML controls also in that.
Yeah, you can. We have it. I will show you that. Okay, currently we are on form methods. I will show you how
Okay.
to add the HTML control.
Okay. So we can pass query string also in this way. Whatever we need.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
You can create this dynamically. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can write simply a if condition and you can get the whatever the data you need from that itself. Okay. You
Yes,
can do
that's
that.
why I'm asking. Yes, yes.
Now you
Thank
can
you.
see here it shows the filter on the city. Okay. If the user wants to remove this, now he can remove this as well. You can see here, Hyderabad is applied as the filter. You can simply remove
Okay.
this and click on apply. It will show all the records. Okay.
Okay.
Because by default, the user wants to see the invoiced records. Then you will apply the default filter as invoiced. If the user wants to see all the records, he will simply remove that filter. Okay. Yeah. Next. Okay, if there are no queries, I will end session for everyone. Thanks all for the session. Let's meet again tomorrow, same time. Thank you all. Bye.